Welcome, investors. I'm a firm believer of technology led innovations and disruptions, and precisely that's why I have at least 30 to 40% of my investing portfolio allocated towards these kind of digital and innovative trends. There's a great book I want to refer to today. It's called The Third Wave, written by Steve Case, who was a co-founder of American Online. And it's a brilliant book. It's a fascinating read. And in this, the third wave, the term he is referring to is the tectonic shift that is revolutionizing all the real world sectors today because of the internet. He classifies that into three groups. The first phase led when consumers were enabled to just connect to the internet, and the second phase where search and social media and all of those capabilities got established, and the consumers were brought into the network. Now the third wave he is referring to is a real sectors disruption like the healthcare, transportation, autonomous and many other things that is really happening in front of our eyes. So today I thought I'll bring this, brilliant execution that is done by a couple of firms in US that is started as just a fintech, but going ahead and becoming and revolutionizing a new trend in the financial world. I call this term as the death of banks and financial institutions. And I'm not talking about just fintech. Fintech was just a staging platform for these companies, but there are only surprisingly two firms which are leading the way in US, while there are many players globally. Now, in US, I'm talking about one such firm. It's called Square. Square was founded by Jack Dorsey, and just as a payments ecosystem, it just started as a payments enabler, as a fintech, a decade back for the small and medium merchants, and to enable their commercial payments. It has gone ahead and innovated a lot of products, very interesting products in the last 5 to 6 years. And the velocity of innovation has been tremendous by this company. Led by Jack Dorsey, Square is poised to really rule the roast in the next decade in the disruption of the whole financial ecosystem. And Square is in the process of becoming a digital bank in the next decade, coming decade. It is at an inflection point. Let's understand what Square is doing right. So here's a presentation. I have called this as the financial powerhouse for the next decade. That's Square. And there is a picture of this small, beautiful instrument that's a payment system that's used by millions of merchants globally. And there is Jack Dorsey. There's a guy who founded Twitter as well as Square. And just a small disclaimer from Sand Compounding that this is just an analysis and not an investment advice. It's more to do illustrate the point of the third wave that's capturing the financial system and leading to the death of banks. Now, here are the three killer pillars of growth of Square. You could see three pillars. One is seller ecosystem, the second is Cash App, and third is Square Capital. And the first one is the original idea, which is a seller ecosystem, started like that. Now, once it was just a financial payment system, now they have 30 different hardware, software, and financial services products offered to the merchants and small business owners. The total gross payment volume in 2019 has been stellar. It's $106 billion. And they monetize. How do they make revenue? Through a combination of transactions fees, subscription fees, and services fees. Now, that's the real business of Square. The next pillar of growth is their most famous, the in thing that's happening right now, that's Cash App. Most of us would have used that in the real time to transfer money to our friends and relatives and everyone. Now, so Cash App is a second pillar, which is fastest growing among all of them in the revenue sector. And it's the fastest growing digital wallet in US itself. Total users tripled from 2017 to 24 million users in 2020. So from nothing, from 0 to 24 million users in just 3 years. And that's astonishing. And they have financial services like P2P transfers, at person-to-person transfers, which we all do, and Cash App debit, where debit card, which is we can use it as a Cash App balance. It's a stored value. Then there is P2P extended to global markets. Also, they're expanding to the global markets, and it lets users now. The next innovation is it's letting the users like us to invest in stocks, in that too in fractional equity, in ETFs, and in bitcoins. Across customers in US. And the third pillar of the growth is the Square Capital. Now they provide loans to the qualified Square sellers, SMBs, based on the credit and POS, that's point of sale data. So they have the credit history. Credit checks are very easy that way, and a lot of risk is absorbed there. And Square got their banking approval from FDIC in 2020. So Square Financial Services, the so-called, is about to expected to launch in the 2021 next year, and will be used to issue loans to existing Square business customers to start with. That's a brilliant innovation because that is part of the ecosystem for the same sellers and SMBs, the small medium business owners. It's easy to lend if they know the history and the real-time point of sale transactions. And here is a pictorial representation. You could see that percentage of gross payments volume categorically distributed across different sectors, and you could see that the food and drink is like 26 percentage, one fourth of their revenue on the payments, and retail is 17 percentage, the next biggest. Then professional services, like the doctors and the financial institutions forms the 15 percentage, then 10 11 percentage for the personal care, beauty, all of that, health and fitness 9%. These are all real consumer, real world scenarios, and it's used across, right? But as you might be rightly thinking now, GPV from the large sellers, which they qualify as greater than 125K, represented more than 55 percentage of total GPV in 2020. So they are de-risking. They are pretty much de-risked. They don't have any customer that accounts for more than 10 percentage of the net revenue as of 2020. Now, 40 percentage of seller business segments has been impacted due to COVID-19 lockdown that's currently going on, and so their revenues has been obliterated in the due to the lockdown that's happening and the shelter in place that's happening. But that's a temporary phenomenon, as we all know. But there is an impact to the near-term revenues of Square as well. Now, here is their business services spread across three segments. I have done a, kind of a strength competition analysis along with your market share analysis. So we'll start with the first pillar, which is payment services in this table. That includes the hardware, point of sale, and software. Point of sale for merchants, that's a capability. It's a cohesive commerce and managed payments ecosystem for specifically SMB merchants. End-to-end cards transactions processing for merchants, and it's built with Square developer platform that consists of APIs, and it's API open APIs that allow you sellers to customize and their business solutions. Now, retail and food industry forms, as we saw in the previous slide, 40% of their revenue share. And strengths, for the payment POS is no contractual obligations. Long-term contracts are not there, like unlike other, including Amazon, what they sign up for. Cohesive payment services platform used by 2 million merchants. This is little outdated. It could be even more than that now. And it's very easy for anybody to onboard. If we want to start, you or I want to start a business, a small, medium business, I could just, with the ease of use is so, the adoption is so easy. It's on a you get a machine, just plug it in and you start using it, and the payment system is ready. So adjunct services like inventory, invoicing, loyalty, which is going to become big, I'll explain that, CRM, and all differentiators from the other players. Now, there are competition obviously from Amazon Pay, Google Pay, Apple Pay, PayPal. All of them are in this. A lot of leaders in this segment. But Square had around 3% market share in website-driven online payments, and there PayPal is a leader. Now, the second leg of the business is what I'm super bullish on. That's a Cash App. Businesses that's just started 3 years back. Businesses can use Cash App to accept payments from their customers, which is a big innovation. And cash for the business. The small businesses are cash starved, as we know, and the working capital is what they need. And the same day settlement is an amazing feature that Cash App provides for businesses, and it's called instant deposits. And even peer to peer is on the same day. I mean, they just get deposited the bank accounts in the same day. Cumulative advanced downloads of their P2P payment app, Square Cash, have surpassed that of the rival PayPal's Venmo, a pure P2P payment system. So Venmo is a pure P2P, but they could also expand into the new areas of new legs of growth. But interesting fact from Google Trend, I put this chart here. It shows that Cash App is overtaken Venmo in the adoption and in the downloads. And so Cash App is, I think, one of the largest download in the last year, 2019. And this shows the trend. You could see that Cash App has overtaken the red line. The Google trend shows clearly that Venmo is behind now. And competition obviously has PayPal's Venmo. They could also expand their business services. Apple Pay, Zelle, which banks consortium runs Zelle for P2P transfer alone. But Cash App is much more than that. Again, Square targets unbanked customers, easy and quick P2P transactions, SMB merchants. That's their market segment. Now, Square Capital facilitates the third leg of business, Square Capital, which facilitates loans to the pre-qualified sellers based on real-time payment and point-of-sale data. That's a credit check they do. Total advances in from 2014, since they started this, has been up to $3.5 billion, and they have facilitated close to 400, roughly half a million loans till now. Average low amount loaned is $10,000. So it's a small ticket item. So they are just giving $10,000 on an average to small pre-qualified sellers. So there is not much of inherent risk in the nature of the business. Now, what are their strengths? Obviously, data is advantage because they are getting real-time data of these sellers. Low credit risk due to insights of cash to the cash flow. Low underwriting cost of loans, and straightforward terms and faster funding process. And they can just get a lockdown of whatever amount on a day-to-day basis from the transaction itself. That locking facility is amazing. Scalability due to sale of loans to institutions. They can resell the loans when they go big. And some of the competition, again, PayPal has a similar offer. Their lending has been doing amazing as well. Amazon is lending to its small business merchants. Amex is lending. There are a lot of leading players in the industry providing working capital loans and capex loans lending to the businesses. And there is huge supply demand mismatch in the SMB working capital lending, which acts as a tailwind for growth for Square. Now, here's a small note I've written about Cash App. That is your main competitive advantage that is becoming the whole ecosystem of bringing sellers and consumers together. And that's a key advantage, competitive advantage. In 3 years, from no monetization, as we saw earlier, it has grown to $1 billion revenue, jumping by 157% year on year. Cash App revenue forms 27% of Square already, and their Square's gross profits, I'm sorry, and in 2019, and it's almost 50% of the total revenue. So it's already half of their revenue. It could even increase their revenue share from here, and especially if you include the Bitcoin revenue. Now it's able to monetize more from the growing user base and segment. This segment brought in $30 in annualized revenue per monthly active customer, excluding Bitcoin. So if you exclude Bitcoin, the revenue per customer is roughly $30, and they have Cash App has around 24 million monthly active users as of date in 2020. Especially, it was there was a strong tailwind in the recent couple of months led by this lockdown and many businesses shifting to the digital world. And according to Amrita Ahuja, the CFO, the recently joined CFO, in December 2019, it was up from $15 per user to $30 per user just 2 years back. So the revenue per user is increasing, which is a very good sign of the prospects for this business. And Cash App has added a lot of new services like investing in fractional equities, competing with Robinhood, and instant deposits, which is a great offer. That is where the main rush is for the users to use instant deposits. Cash card, which is another innovation. Bitcoin transactions, you could buy and even transact in Bitcoins. And there has been a big the Bitcoin revenue increased 300% in for Square in the last year. And it has strong pricing power. The whole Cash App ecosystem, that was evident because they could increase the instant deposit fees from 1% to 1.5%. So there is a pricing power inherent in the nature of the business, and it still continued to outpace the peers in terms of the new user addition and monetization of the services. So very interesting application that they have developed in the form of Cash App. Now you see the digital innovation has already embarked in Europe and many of the emerging nations. It just a little lagging in US. But let's analyze now, get into more details on what the difference is, what we can learn from the digital trends that's happening in Europe and China and India and Brazil, even for that matter. And let's understand how that will impact. Now, let's get into the slide where again. See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, look at this. This is a comparative study recently done, and which is very good information. They have comparing the number of days it takes on the left side, that list of banks that you see, that's based on the number of days it takes to open an account, and they're comparing it against the digital banking. And these are called challenger banks in Europe, especially the open banking ones. So you see that the Revolut, the Monzos of the world, how they are challenging the Utrip and all, are challenging the large banks, like the HSBC, Santander, Barclays, Standard Chartered, Societe General, all of them, BNP Paribas. Look at the number of days it takes: 90 days, up 2 to 3 months time it takes to open an account, right? That's very irritating for customers. And here, the new age banks, challenger banks, are doing it. Like Monzos of the world are doing it with just a click of a button. These are the digital challenger banks in Europe, already pretty big in size, medium in size, and they are going to be becoming massively big, especially with open banking. Now, what is informative here is, look at how the same trend is adopting in US also. Now, what worked for Cash App? Cash App has got excellent promotions, marketing. Their marketing is amazing, through TikTok and sponsorship like 100 Thieves Content House and all of that. And ease of use for customers is on click, and they can do P2P transactions and instant deposits. These are all highlights of this Cash App, and that is leading to this digital banking slowly and steadily. Loyalty is a big one. Loyalty offers to the customers through their Cash App cards. You get 10% off, through the groceries when you purchase through DoorDash delivery or food chain, and the new investing options that is provided. Another feather in the hat is through the investments in fractional equities and crypto. All of this put together, this is the growth maturity curve I'm talking about. So Cash App, I would say, in the digital banking story, it's still in the nascent stage. You could see that they are at an inflection point today, the lower bottom of the curve, where the growth from 0 to $1 billion revenue in 3 years, and this is that stage. And from here, it is going to be a J curve, and the growth is going to be a 10x. Even for PayPal, it could be 5x from here. And Square, especially being a smaller firm, it could be a 10x growth with the digital banking ecosystem that's building. So this slide is revenues, profitability, cash flow, and balance sheet analysis. I'll make this very quick. So you have Square's balance sheet on the left side and the P&L on the left side. And also I have brought up the important points about their operational aspects. To start with, the total net revenue was $4.7 billion, with a growth of 43% year on year in 2019 compared to 2018. And they have, the gross, the total cost of revenue also increased in accordance. It's 42%, pretty much in line. So it was $2.8 billion, and the total operating income was $26 million. And net income, they had a one-time sale of assets that is flown to here. So the net income is $375 million. They had sold their business Caviar, which is a food delivery business like the Grubhubs, and they sold it to DoorDash, and took a good part is they took $100 million equity ownership of DoorDash as well as part of the transaction. Rest flew to the company's balance sheet. Now, it was a cash guzzler business. So the sale of Caviar was a brilliant move by Square, because it was really guzzling the cash out of them. And the margins, it was 45% of total subscription cost. And now selling this would aid to the growth in the margins, because of the margins can increase from here on. And it's evident in the current year transactions, and the next year P&L, we could easily identify that part. That's why one other reason I see is a tailwind for Square. And they have invested that kind of research and development, that's 14%, and as well as marketing and sales, 14% of their revenue. So a significant portion, almost one third of their revenues, is going towards building the business for the future and also promoting that through excellent marketing skills. Now, they might have 2019, I mean 2020 COVID-19 related impact as a temporary one-time write-offs in their capital business, that is Square Capital, where they might have to write off some business due to shutdown and bankruptcy and all of that. But that's again a temporary phenomenon. They will be able to come off that, and the work around refinancing and multiple other options with the SMBs, and they have been already involved with the government to provide that kind of a credit line to these businesses, and they are kind of intermediating between government and the small medium businesses to provide them the required credit. And at the same time, we have to take into the account they have around $1 billion in cash in their balance, in their books, and roughly $900 million of debt. So net they can survive through this period of uncertainty. Now, cash flow from operations in 2019 was around $465 million, a good jump from $295 million last year. Primarily, I think partly it can be attributed to the sale of the assets, that is their food service delivery business, and revenues growing at 43%, the total gross payments volume growing at 25%, steady growth, and their capital, Square Capital, is growing brilliant 74%, and their Bitcoin transactions growing 300%, plus their Cash App is growing at 150%. So overall, kicking all gears, and the overall growth is 43%, and I think they will sustain this kind of earnings and revenues in the foreseeable future, with more and more services offerings and more customers adding to to their complete group of customer list. So now let us get into the next aspect, which is the six succinct points why I think Square can be a digital and financial powerhouse in the next decade. The first one, it all starts with, it's a story of financial and economic empowerment of people and inclusion of people. And that really transforms Square into a complete financial ecosystem, bringing together the sellers of the market and the host, providing the buyers as well, bringing them to a ecosystem, and providing a slew of services, including end-to-end point of sale, cash transfer, payments, loyalty. Loyalty is going to be big for them, especially on the Cash App cards, and the credit cards. Their loyalty tie-ups are pretty interesting. They're giving 10% discount to for grocery payments with Walmart, and DoorDash services and all of that. So they have very good retail, like Nike is tied up. They have a lot of good tie-ups. So it could be a very good ecosystem, providing good discounts for customers, enabling P2P settlements, instant deposits for the businesses, and even for instant bank deposits for the customers. Marketing capabilities. Now, another aspect which I did not get too much detail because they just started this business. I put that as last point here. They have entered into the seller. The last but one point, they have started the Square online stores, and the GPV, that's a gross payment volume of online stores. This is staggering. Have seen multiplier effect, has grown fivefold in the last 2 months during this lockdown, especially where many of their business or seller business are trying to get online. They're providing omni-channel strategy for their seller businesses or small and medium merchants, and they're trying to bring the merchants online and providing digital complete ecosystem. And this omni-channel strategy, and the GPV has grown 5 times, and that shows the potential for the business of online stores, setting up the digital storefronts for them. Now, other aspects, other 4 points I want to bring up is the subscription-based growth has been big lever for Square, especially the Cash App, which we discussed a lot. It can really bolster their Square's future revenue potential. Now, they are also expanding their services into international markets like UK, Australia, which can again give large markets to grow. There's been a success there as well, international markets like UK and Australia, and their leap into the investing options. That's a brilliant move. I mean, they nailed it there. I would say through the Cash App is big, because they let the customers, as the CFO says, customers could spend, could save, could invest, and could store everything in one system. And let's look at it. Robinhood, which is a brilliant firm again in the investing, serving the investing needs of millennial population especially. they just replicated. I mean, Square just put another investing ecosystem where they could just invest in fractional equities, when which many of the financial juggernauts are doing not doing, and they pretty much are giving everything that Robinhood does. So Square Cash App can invest in bitcoins and transact through bitcoins, and also invest in fractional equities, like you could buy fraction of the shares of biggies, like, for example, Berkshire Hathaway. Somebody cannot buy the one share of Berkshire Hathaway, which is priced at 400K, I don't know what, per share, and they could buy a fraction share. That's a brilliant move. And another thing is, Robinhood is currently valued on the private. They are not public. This on the private side, they are roughly valued around $8 billion today, and Square is valued at $34 billion. So there we go. Already one fourth of valuation is what Robinhood is demanding just for the investing service, and cash. I don't think Square valuation reflects today their future potential of the investing business. Now, again, another point, the management has been very innovative. Jack Dorsey and team, and Sarah, the ex-CEO, as well as the current CEO, CFO, who has joined their board, Amrita Huja. I mean, lot of experience, and they have together done a great effort. In the whole team has been launching. The velocity of product launches and innovations has been uh, really amazing, and it's been disruptive to the banks. And also they're targeted with unbanked population and merchants, they who couldn't afford to set up the whole payments, terminals and other things. So they started there, and they really expanded into bottom of the funnel today, not only staying at the top of the funnel. And the target segments has broadened, and I think it's going to broaden even further in the coming years. Now, so putting all of this together, the last point is they have combined the seller ecosystem and the customers together through providing, sellers, they provide the omni-channel stores, payments, payments gateways, online and social media through Cash App, credit funding, and all of that. And for customer ecosystem, they provide store value, they provide credit cards, Cash App cards, P2P transfers, investing, and eventually even deposits and loans with the banking license they've got. We don't know what they're going to add into their set of businesses. The repertoire is going to become big, and Square is becoming big. I think this is going to become a big digital bank in the future, and it's worth noting down this from an investment standpoint. And as a business, if one needs to track, it's a great business to track in the coming decade. Hope this was useful, and thanks for staying with me.